In the next and the last chapter, I would like to show you several games. They are mixed, featuring different plans, different ideas. But I hope that these games will be a good source of ideas and inspiration that you can use in your own practice, in your own games. In the same way as such ideas were helping me to win a lot of games and achieve good results. So I will start with a game against strong Dutch Grandmaster Erik van den Doel. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6, d3, bishop c5, c3, a6, bishop b3, d6, knight b d2. In this game, I'm choosing another plan, the third one. We're not looking at this plan for the moment. I'm trying to transfer the knight to f1 to g3 without playing h3. Bishop a7, knight f1, and now as the consequence, I had to react to the move knight g4 here. Here in this position, it was possible for white to play d4 with the following idea, that if now e d4, c d4, queen f6, h3, knight f2, king f2, knight d4, so the position is quite sharp. Black has compensation for the piece, but still this compensation is not enough for black, and white should be better here. But during the game I didn't want to go into the complications, so I played a very safe move, knight e3. So after exchange on e3, now we have got this position that I was talking about previously. White has an open f line with the possibility to attack the pawn f7 and also the attack on the king side. Also sometimes white can play d4, trying to win the space in the center. Although potentially white has a worse bishop b3 than the bishop c8. It is not so easy to use, and as we see in the current game, white has managed to get the advantage in this position. Knight e5, so moving away the knight from the center is not a good idea. Black is losing the time and allows white to not only win the time but also win the space in the center and on the queen's side. So of course I'm not exchanging this bishop, retreating with it to c2, bishop e6, b4, knight c6, and now the move d4. We see that black lost time and white has a very strong center now. Bishop g4, queen e1, the queen is going to the king side for attack. Bishop h5, black is trying to put the bishop on g6, blockading the g line, also taking the square f5 under control, because with the last move white wanted to play knight h4 here. So the idea is to play knight h4, knight f5, and exchange here on f3 was not good, because after exchange on f3 the bishop sooner or later will come to b3 and the pawn f7 will be targeted. Also white can play queen g3 and then rook a fn, attacking the pawn on f7. So black has a difficult dilemma what to do. In the game he decided not to take on f3, so he played bishop h5. Now I play queen g3, bishop g6, and now knight h4. Queen e7, rook f3 now. Before proceeding with an active play, I'm trying to improve the position of all my pieces to the maximum. The rook is going to f1, the bishop will go to b3, and I'm selecting the weakest point in black position, and this is the pawn f7 for attack. rook a e8, rook f1, king h8, and now bishop b3. So black position is collapsing. He is not able to avoid material losses here. Also, I have the idea to take on g6, fg6, and queen g6, because taking on g6 will be impossible because of the mate on h3. So a5, now knight g6, fg6. So taking on g6 is not so good because my pawn on b4 is also hanging, and also there is a move a4 at some point. So I prefer to play bishop f8, rook a8, and now I play queen h3. So mate on h7 is hanging, so black is forced to play h6. And now playing d5, knight d8, bishop g6, rook f3, queen f3, white wins the pawn. Also, the position of the knight d8 is very bad, so there is no coordination in the black pieces. So king g8, now b5. It is very important to keep the position closed, as I've already been telling before, that the opponent doesn't get any counterplay. b6, and now queen g4. The idea is to prevent the development of the knight to b7, because then there will be queen e6 check winning, and the pawn e7 and e8 will promote. So now queen g5 is forced, queen g5, h5. So eventually black will lose the pawn on g5, but he has a small counterplay. He can play a4, a3, and try to free the rook a8, attacking my pawn a2, which is behind. Rook f5, a4, now a3 is a strong move in order to prevent move a3. So better to keep the pawn further from promoting. Knight b7, bishop f7, king h7, rook g5, now mate is hanging. Black must sacrifice the third pawn, and although he has still some counter chances, using the fact that my pawn a3 is weak and the knight can go to f5 to c4, but of course this is not enough. Now I take on g6, king h6, rook g4, knight a5, bishop f5, and white just in time to create its own mating ideas. As you see, it is ending, but still white has attack, as the same as in middle game. Also, please remember my game against Golod, where also in the ending I was creating the mating ideas. Knight c4, rook g6, so the king has go to h7, because on h5 it is a very bad place for the king, and white will win several tempo. Now the pawn on d6 is lost, king h8, rook h6, and now rook c6 and d6. So finally the bishop f5 is coming into play to stop the pawn a4, and black position is falling apart. So here black resigned. Although quite a simple game, it is very instructive for you to know how to play when the pawns e4, e3 and doubled, and white gets a play attacking the black king. In the next example I will show you a similar game against an American player.